My entire family went to my sister's $750,000 wedding. Everyone but me. Mom said I'd ruin her perfect day. I said, fair enough. Then my Paris wedding pic went viral. You know that moment when someone says something so casually, so dismissively, that it changes everything? For me, it was my own mother, looking at me with almost pitying eyes saying, "You understand why you can't come, don't you? Vivian's dream wedding isn't about you, Juliet. Your presence would just be complicated." Complicated? My blood ran cold. I knew right then this wasn't just another snub. This was a deliberate, brutal erasure. And it made me wonder, what the hell was I going to do about it? My name's Juliet. I'm 27, a freelance photographer. Mostly architectural stuff, travel. I scrape by, you know? Enough for my small studio apartment and to keep my gear running. For years I just accepted it. Being the overlooked daughter. It was my role, the way things were in our family. My younger sister, Vivian, she's 3 years younger. Always the golden child. Prettier, charming, always more successful in my parents' eyes. Landed a fancy marketing job. Married a wealthy investment banker named Gregory. Lives in a pristine townhouse my mom can't stop bragging about. But this was different. This wasn't just my birthday being overshadowed or forgotten at Christmas. This was being banned from what my mother called the event of the decade. Complicated how? I managed, my voice steady even though my hands were trembling. My mother sighed like explaining this was just exhausting. Vivian has 300 guests, Juliet. Everyone who matters will be there. The venue alone cost them $75,000. She's wearing a custom Vera Wang. There will be photographers from 2 bridal magazines. This isn't some backyard barbecue. This is a statement. She leaned forward slightly, her voice dropping. And you would just ruin that statement. You know how you are. You know how you are. That phrase hit me harder than anything. It was their code for you never quite fit. You're always in your jeans with that old camera bag. Vivian's friends are all polished, put-together people. You'd feel uncomfortable anyway. I wanted to scream. To tell her I own nice dresses, that I could look presentable. That being a photographer didn't make me a social pariah. But deep down I knew it wasn't about my wardrobe. It was about hierarchy. About keeping me in my place. Does Vivian know you're telling me this? I asked, looking for any flicker of discomfort. My mother's expression barely changed. We discussed it as a family. Your father agrees it's for the best. And honestly, Juliet, you should be relieved. $750,000 for a wedding? That's the kind of pressure you wouldn't want to be around anyway. $750,000? That number felt obscene. More than I'd earned in 5 years. And they were spending it on a single day. A single event I wasn't allowed to witness because I might tarnish it. I stood up slowly, grabbing my camera bag. My mother watched me, still with that calm, unbothered expression. I understand, I said, my voice barely a whisper. She actually looked relieved. I knew you would. You've always been so sensible about these things. Sensible. That was her word for compliant. For accepting whatever scraps of affection they tossed my way. I walked to the door, my boots soft on the hardwood floor. Just before I reached it, I turned back. When is it? I asked. The wedding. June 15th. But Juliet, I really think it's better if... I just wanted to know. I interrupted. For my calendar. I left before she could say anything else. Driving away from their pristine colonial house, something shifted inside me. It wasn't exactly anger. Not yet. It was clarity. Cold, sharp clarity about exactly where I stood in this family, and what I was worth to them. June 15th. 3 months away. 3 months they would spend preparing for Vivian's perfect day, while I was expected to just disappear. To make myself conveniently absent so nobody would have to explain why the older sister wasn't there. I pulled into a coffee shop parking lot and just sat in my car, staring at my phone. Then I opened my banking app. $4,300. Not much, but it was mine. Money I'd earned through my own work, my own skill. And an idea was forming. Something reckless. Something bold. Something completely unlike the sensible, compliant Juliet my mother expected me to be. If they didn't want me at Vivian's perfect wedding, fine. But I didn't have to spend that day alone, scrolling through social media, watching an event I was banned from. I opened my laptop and started researching. The idea grew over the next few weeks, consuming my thoughts between photography jobs. I'd always dreamed of visiting Paris, a dream I'd tucked away, feeling perpetually out of reach for someone living paycheck to paycheck. But looking at my savings, doing the math, I realized it was possible. Barely, but possible. Vivian and I had been close once, briefly. When we were children, maybe 4 or 5 years of blissful normalcy before the favoritism became too obvious to ignore. Blanket forts, whispered secrets. But in middle school, everything shifted. Vivian discovered her power. She learned our parents would always choose her version of events. She could play the victim and get what she wanted. I was 15, she was 12. I'd saved for months from babysitting to buy a professional camera. My dream. When it arrived, Vivian threw a tantrum. Within a week, my parents bought her a laptop that cost twice as much. The pattern was set. In college, I worked part-time jobs to cover expenses. Vivian got a brand new car for her 18th birthday. After graduation, while I struggled to build my business, Vivian landed her marketing job, immediately making more money than I could dream of. My parents' pride was palpable. Finally, their beautiful youngest daughter was proving her worth. I was invisible unless they needed free photos or a house sitter. I should have been angry. And underneath everything but mostly I was tired. Tired of hoping they'd someday see my value. Tired of making myself smaller so Vivian could shine brighter. 2 weeks after my mother's announcement, the official wedding invitation arrived. Addressed to my parents, with a note listing who from the family was invited. Everyone. Parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins. Everyone but me. The omission was deliberate. Documented. I stared at that heavy cardstock, the gold embossing, the elegant calligraphy. Something crystallized inside me. This wasn't an oversight. This was a statement about my worth in this family. That evening I called Kara my best friend. We'd met at a photography workshop 5 years ago, and she was one of the few people who understood my family without judgment. They didn't invite you? Kara's voice rose in disbelief. To your own sister's wedding? Apparently. I'm a distraction from her perfect day. That's insane. What are you going to do? I took a breath. I'm thinking about going to Paris. The same weekend. Silence. Then, tell me more. I told her about the photographer I'd found, who did high-end bridal-style shoots for travelers. Custom gown, professional hair and makeup. Sunrise shoot at the Eiffel Tower. It's expensive, I said. But I can afford it if I'm careful. You want to have your own wedding shoot. Without a wedding? Why not? If they're going to exclude me from family events, I might as well create my own moments. And I'm a photographer. I know the power of a good image. Carl laughed. I love this. I absolutely love this. When do we leave? You think I'm letting you do this alone? I have vacation days saved up. Let me look at flights. That conversation changed everything. Suddenly it wasn't just a fantasy. It was a real plan with a real friend who believed in me. I spent the next month working every extra job I could find. Corporate headshots, real estate, family portraits. My savings account grew. I researched Paris, found the photographer Isabel. She responded enthusiastically. She had a dress designer friend. She knew the perfect locations. The dress alone would be $1,500. The photography package, $2,000. Flights and hotel for Cara and me, $3,000. Hair and makeup, $300. It was more money than I'd ever spent on myself. But every time I hesitated, I thought about that invitation. My name conspicuously absent. My mother's casual dismissal. Her certainty I'd just accept being erased. 3 weeks before Vivian's wedding, I booked everything. Flights, hotel, photography, dress measurements. It was happening. I didn't tell my family. They didn't ask what I'd be doing that weekend anyway. They probably assumed I'd be at home, working on my portfolio, definitely not making any waves. But I told Cara everything. This trip became something bigger than just a response to exclusion. It became an act of reclaiming my own narrative. My phone buzzed one evening in late May. A text from Vivian. The first direct communication since wedding planning started. Mom said you understood about the wedding. I appreciate you being mature about it. It's nothing personal. Nothing personal. As if excluding your only sibling from the biggest day of your life was just a practical decision, like choosing salmon over chicken. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed, "I hope you have a beautiful day." I meant it in a way. I hoped she got everything she wanted from her extravagant celebration, as I was about to get something too. The week before the trip, my nerves kicked in hard. Was I being petty? Was this just expensive revenge that would leave me broke and hollow? What if nobody even cared about my Paris photos? But then my mother called, and those doubts evaporated. "Vivian is so stressed," she started without preamble. "The final alterations on her dress aren't quite right, and the florist had to substitute 2 types of roses. Can you imagine?" "That sounds frustrating," I said carefully. "She's handling it well, though. She's such a professional." Gregory's mother is hosting a luncheon tomorrow for the wedding party and immediate family. It should be lovely. Immediate family. A category I apparently no longer belong to. "I'm sure it will be nice," I said. "Are you working that weekend?" "The wedding weekend?" There was something in her tone, a hope I'd have a concrete excuse for my absence, to make the whole situation feel less cruel. "I have plans," I said. "Oh good. I'm glad you'll have something to occupy yourself with." After we hung up, I pulled out my suitcase. Cara arrived 2 days before we left for Paris. The dress designer had sent confirmation photos of the gown. It was breathtaking. A flowing ivory creation with delicate beading. A skirt that would move beautifully. It was everything I'd envisioned. Cara brought props. A delicate vintage veil, a bouquet preservation kit. "This is going to be incredible," she said, scrolling through Isabel's portfolio. "You're going to look like you stepped out of a magazine." I looked at the images of stunning women at iconic Paris locations. In 2 days, that would be me. Thrilling. Terrifying. "Do you think I'm being vindictive?" I asked her. Cara set down her tablet and looked at me, really looked at me. "Seriously? I think you're being human. They excluded you and expected you to disappear quietly. You're not crashing the wedding. You're not trying to ruin anything. You're simply living your life in a way that brings you joy. That's not vindictive. That's survival." We flew out Thursday evening, landing in Paris early Friday morning. Exhausted but electric. The city was everything I'd imagined. Our hotel was a small boutique place, walking distance to the Eiffel Tower. After checking in and napping, we met Isabel. She was warm, enthusiastic, her English charmingly accented. "The dress arrived yesterday," she said, leading us to a back room. "I think you will be very pleased." It was more beautiful in person. The ivory fabric caught the light, the beading delicate. I told the designer I wanted something bridal, but not costume-like. Something I could wear to a fancy event. She'd nailed it. "We begin at 5:30 tomorrow morning," Isabel explained. "The light at sunrise is perfect, and there will be fewer tourists. Hair and makeup starts at 4. I knew it was early, but I trusted her. That evening, Cara and I walked around Paris, ate at a small cafe, wandered along the Seine. I tried not to think about Charleston. Wedding guests were arriving. Vivian was probably having a spa day. My parents were in their element, hosting, being proud. And I was here about to create something entirely my own. We were in bed early, multiple alarms set. At 3:30 a.m. we stumbled out of bed. The hair and makeup artist transformed me. Small flowers in my upswept hair. Natural but polished makeup. By 5 a.m. in the ivory gown, I felt like a different person. Cara kept taking photos on her phone. "You look like a princess," she grinned. "Vivian's going to die when she sees these." "If she sees them," I corrected. "I haven't decided what I'm going to do with the photos yet." That was partly true. Part of me wanted to post them publicly. A visible reminder that I existed and could create beauty without their permission. But another part wanted to keep them private, a secret rebellion only I understood. Isabel picked us up. We drove to the Trocadero Gardens. The sky was just lightning, a soft pink glow. The Eiffel Tower stood before us, dramatic, iconic. "Perfect," Isabel murmured, already assessing angles. For the next 2 hours we moved through the gardens. Isabel directed me with professional expertise. "Turn, lift the dress, look toward the tower." Cara assisted with the veil and train. It was magic. There was no other word. As the sun rose, golden light spreading, I forgot about Vivian's wedding. I forgot about being the overlooked daughter. In that moment, I was simply Juliet, standing in one of the most beautiful cities in the world, looking exactly how I wanted to look. When Isabel finally lowered her camera, she was smiling. "We have something very special. I can feel it." We shot a few more images, then by 8 a.m. we were finished. Exhausted but exhilarated. Back at the hotel, I carefully hung the dress. Kara and I collapsed onto our beds. "That was unreal," Kara said. "Seriously, Juliet, you just created art." I smiled. A feeling I hadn't felt in a long time. Not happiness exactly, but validation. Proof that I could create my own beautiful moments without needing my family's approval or inclusion. My phone buzzed. A message from my mother. "Wedding day. Everything looks perfect." I didn't respond. I closed my eyes, drifting into sleep, satisfied in a way I couldn't quite articulate. Tomorrow I would see the photos. Tomorrow I would decide what to do with them. Tomorrow everything might change. But for now I rested, knowing I had done something brave, beautiful, and entirely for myself. We spent the rest of Saturday exploring Paris, but my mind kept drifting back to Charleston. By now, Vivian's ceremony had started. I imagined the mansion, the 300 guests, my parents playing their roles perfectly. And nobody would mention me. Nobody would ask. Kara noticed my distraction that evening. "You're thinking about it." "Hard not to," I admitted. "I keep wondering if anyone even noticed I'm not there." "Their loss," Kara said firmly. "And honestly, after what we did this morning, after those photos we're going to see tomorrow, you won. You already won." I wanted to believe her, but a hollow feeling in my chest wouldn't quite go away. It wasn't jealousy of Vivian's wedding. It was grief. For the family relationship I'd always wanted but never had. Grief for being the daughter who wasn't worth including. Sunday morning, we met Isabel to review the photos. As she pulled up the first image, I gasped. It was me, but somehow more than me. The morning light, an otherworldly glow. The Eiffel Tower perfectly framed. The dress flowing like water. My expression. Serene, confident, beautiful in a way I'd never seen myself before. "Keep going," Kara breathed, leaning forward. Isabel clicked through image after image. Each one stunning. Dramatic silhouettes against the sky. Soft and romantic shots with the veil catching the breeze. Close-ups, wide shots. "These are professional quality," I said, my voice catching. "These could be in magazines." Isabel smiled. "They should be. You have a gift for the camera, Juliet. You embodied the vision." We selected the best for final editing. Isabel promised them by Tuesday. As we left the studio, Kara grabbed my arm. "You need to post these. I know you're hesitant, but these are too good to keep private." "I don't know," I said. "What if it seems like I'm trying to upstage Vivian? What if it does?" Kara challenged. "She excluded you from her wedding. She doesn't get to control how you spend your time, or what you share about your own life. These photos aren't about her. They're about you." We spent Sunday and Monday being tourists, but my mind kept returning to those images. Kara was right. They were too beautiful to hide. And more than that, I had worked hard for them. I'd saved, planned, taken a risk. Why should I diminish my own achievement because it might overshadow my sister? By Monday evening, I'd made a decision. When Isabel sent the final edited images on Tuesday, I would post one. Not to hurt Vivian. Simply to share something I was proud of. If my family had a problem with that, well, they should have thought about that before excluding me. Tuesday afternoon, the edited photos arrived. Even more stunning. I spent an hour choosing which one to post. Finally, an image taken as the sun broke the horizon. Me in profile, looking towards the Eiffel Tower, the dress catching golden light. Perfect. Now the caption. I typed in deleted versions. Not bitter, not angry, but confident. Finally. No invite needed to shine brighter. I stared at those words. They were pointed enough that my family would understand. Vague enough for most others. My truth delivered with grace, not rage. I posted it to Instagram at 7 p.m. Paris time, which was 1 p.m. in Charleston. Vivian's wedding was Saturday, so she'd be on her honeymoon, or in the post-wedding glow, probably posting her own professional photos. I closed the app immediately, too nervous to watch reactions. Kara and I went to dinner trying to distract ourselves. But by the time we got back to the hotel 2 hours later, my phone was exploding. The post already had over 2,000 likes, far more than anything I'd ever posted. Comments poured in stunning. Where is this dress from? Paris goals. You look like a fairy tale princess. I scrolled, my heart racing. Then I saw messages from people I actually knew. Distant cousins, old school friends, professional contacts. All amazed. But nothing from my immediate family. Not my parents, not Vivian. Radio silence from the people who should have cared most. It's going viral, Cara said, looking at her own phone. Someone already shared it to a wedding inspiration page. They're calling it solo bridal photo shoot and asking if this is a new trend. I checked the share count. Over 300. Climbing. Within the wedding photography community I followed, people were talking about it. Someone tagged bridal magazines. This is insane, I whispered. This is actually viral. Cara was grinning. You created something people respond to. This is what happens when genuine emotion meets professional quality. People can feel the authenticity. We stayed up late watching the numbers climb. By midnight Paris time, 5,000 likes, over 1,000 shares. A major wedding blog reached out. 2 photographers wanted to credit Isabel. A dress designer asked about the gown. Still nothing from my family. I went to bed with my phone buzzing constantly. It should have felt triumphant. But I felt strangely empty. I had wanted validation, proof that I mattered. I was getting it from thousands of strangers. But the people whose recognition I craved most remained silent. Wednesday morning we packed for home. My post was still gaining traction. Overnight, a major lifestyle website had picked it up. Million of followers. They wrote a short article about the solo wedding shoot trend, featuring my photo prominently. The numbers were staggering now. Over 15,000 likes. Nearly 5,000 shares. Comments in multiple languages. People were asking where to book similar shoots, tagging friends, sharing their own stories of family exclusion. I had unintentionally tapped into something bigger than my personal grievance. It resonated with people who had felt overlooked, dismissed, or excluded. My photo wasn't just pretty. It represented reclaiming your own narrative when others tried to write you out of the story. On the flight home, exhaustion caught up. I slept most of the way, phone on airplane mode. Cara gave me updates during layovers. A bridal magazine wants to interview you, she reported. Someone from a morning show reached out. They want to do a segment on solo celebration shoots. That's crazy, I said. I'm not qualified to speak about trends. I just wanted nice photos. You started something, Cara insisted. Whether you meant to or not. We landed in Charleston late Wednesday evening. I had several missed calls from my mother, and a string of texts from Vivian. I didn't read them. Too tired. Thursday morning my phone rang. My mother. 4th call. I answered. Juliet, what on earth were you thinking? Her voice was sharp with anger. Good morning to you too, I said, sitting up. Don't be flippant. You posted that ridiculous photo during Vivian's wedding. Do you have any idea how inappropriate that was? I posted it on Monday, I corrected. 2 days after the wedding. It doesn't matter when you posted it. It's everywhere now. People keep sending it to Vivian, asking if you're her sister, asking why you weren't at the wedding. You've completely overshadowed her special day. A surge of anger. Her special day that I wasn't invited to. We explained the situation. This was Vivian's time to shine. And you couldn't even give her that? You had to make it about yourself. I went to Paris, I said, my voice dangerously calm. I took photos I'm proud of. I posted one picture to my personal Instagram account. How? Is any of that about Vivian? Because the timing. The timing was the only weekend I could afford the trip. I interrupted. Or did you expect me to schedule my entire life around an event I wasn't allowed to attend? Silence. Then tightly. Vivian is very upset. Vivian excluded me from her wedding without a conversation or explanation. I'm sorry if my life existing publicly upset her, but that's not my problem. This is exactly why we didn't invite you. My mother snapped. This kind of attitude, this need for attention. You've always been jealous of your sister. I've never been jealous, I said, and I meant it. I've been hurt. I've been dismissed. I've been treated as less important my entire life. But I'm not jealous. And I'm done apologizing for existing. I hung up before she could respond. My hands were shaking. In all my years, I had never directly confronted my mother like that. Empowering. Terrifying. Within an hour, Vivian called. Curiosity one. You sabotaged my wedding, she said immediately, her voice thick with tears or rage. I wasn't even in the same country as your wedding, I replied. You know what I mean. Everyone is talking about your stupid Paris photos instead of my wedding. I spent 3 months planning every detail. And you ruined it with one attention-seeking post. Vivian, I didn't do anything to you. I took photos in Paris. That's it. During my wedding weekend. You planned it specifically to take attention away from me. Actually, I planned it because it was the only weekend I wasn't expected to participate in family events, I said. Since I wasn't invited to yours, Mom explained why. No. I cut her off. Mom made excuses. There's a difference. You wanted me excluded and you got what you wanted. But you don't get to control what I do with my own life and my own social media. I barely got any engagement on my wedding photos. Vivian cried. 200 likes. My wedding photographer's post got even less. But your stupid fake wedding shoot has gone viral. Do you know how that feels? Part of me wanted to feel sympathy. A larger part felt nothing but cold satisfaction. I imagine it feels like being told you're not good enough to attend your sister's wedding, I said quietly. Like being erased from family photos and events. Like being the eternal disappointment who never quite measures up. So yes, Vivian, I know exactly how that feels. She hung up on me. I sat on my couch staring at my phone. Vindication. But also a hollowness. This was what I wanted, wasn't it? For them to see me, to acknowledge my existence, to feel some consequence? But it didn't feel as good as I thought it would. My phone buzzed. A text from Kara. Are you okay? Saw your Instagram comments. Your family found out. I replied, yeah, they're mad, but I'm okay. Kara's response, good. You did nothing wrong. Remember that. I spent the rest of the day catching up on work, trying to ignore my still exploding Instagram. It had passed 20,000 likes now. Blogs, magazines, a wedding planning company wanting to sponsor similar shoots. Surreal. I'd gone to Paris to create one beautiful moment for myself, and I had accidentally launched a social media movement. People were posting their own solo celebration photos using hashtags like #ShineWithoutPermission and #MyOwnNarrative. Friday afternoon, an unknown number called. Is this Juliet? This is Melissa from Bridal Dreams magazine. We'd love to feature your photo shoot in our next issue and do a full interview. Bridal Dreams. One of the biggest bridal publications in the country. The same magazine that had sent photographers to Vivian's wedding. I'm interested, I heard myself say. What would that involve? Melissa explained. A 4-page spread. Professional treatment. My story in my own words. They were calling it a new kind of celebration. When you're your own guest of honor. After we hung up, I sat in stunned silence. Then I started laughing. Not cruel, but the kind born from disbelief and irony. Vivian had spent $750,000 to get magazine coverage for her wedding. And I had accidentally gotten it with one Instagram post and a $5,000 trip to Paris. The magazine interview was scheduled for the following week. My post kept its trajectory. 40,000 likes, then 60,000. Brands reached out. Sponsorships, collaborations. A travel company wanted to create a solo celebration package. A dress designer wanted to collaborate on a line of non-bridal formal wear for women celebrating themselves. I was overwhelmed. I was a freelancer who could barely afford rent. Now, opportunities that could change my financial situation entirely. But more than the money, I felt seen. Thousands of people understood what I had done and why it mattered. My family, however, was spiraling. Saturday morning, my father called. Unlike my mother, he wasn't yelling. He sounded tired. Juliet, can we talk in person? I agreed to meet him at a coffee shop. He looked older than I remembered, the stress visible. Thank you for coming, he said. What did you want to talk about? He sighed. Your mother and sister are very upset. I know, I said. They've made that clear. They feel you deliberately tried to ruin Vivian's wedding. And what do you think? I asked. He was quiet for a long moment. I think we didn't handle the wedding situation well. Your mother was worried about family dynamics, about keeping things smooth for Vivian's day. But maybe we went too far. Maybe. The word came out sharper than I intended. We should have included you, he said quietly. That's what I wanted to say. We should have found a way to make everyone feel welcome. But you didn't. No, we didn't. He looked at me directly. And I'm sorry for that. I should have stood up for you and I didn't. It was the first apology I'd received from anyone in my family. It should have felt more satisfying than it did. I appreciate that, I said carefully. But Dad, this isn't just about the wedding. This is about years of being treated like I don't matter as much as Vivian. The wedding was just the final, most obvious example. I know, he said, looking genuinely pained. Your mother and we saw Vivian's confidence and success, and we wanted to encourage that. But we didn't realize how much we were neglecting you in the process. You realized, I corrected. You just didn't think it mattered enough to change. He didn't argue. Instead, he pulled out his phone. It was Vivian's Instagram. Her wedding photos had comments disabled and barely a handful of likes. She's devastated, he said. All that planning, all that money, and nobody seems to care. Meanwhile, your Paris photos are everywhere. She feels like you stole her moment. I didn't steal anything, I said firmly. I created my own moment. The fact that people responded to it more than they did to her wedding isn't my fault. I know that. Logically, I know that. He put his phone away. But she's my daughter too, and she's hurting. So am I said. I've been hurting for years and none of you noticed or cared. Now suddenly it matters because Vivian's feelings are hurt? That's not fair, is it? I stood up. Dad, I'm glad you apologized about the wedding. But one apology doesn't undo decades of dismissal. And I'm not going to apologize for living my life and posting about it, just because it makes Vivian feel bad. I left before he could respond. Walking back to my apartment, I felt the weight of everything. This wasn't the simple revenge fantasy I might have imagined. It was complicated, messy, and painful for everyone. But I also felt something else. Freedom. For the first time, I wasn't trying to make myself smaller. I wasn't apologizing for taking up space. Monday morning, I did the interview with Bridal Dreams. The journalist was insightful. What made you decide to do this shoot? She asked. I wanted to create something beautiful for myself, I said. I spent so much time waiting for permission to be celebrated, waiting to be seen as valuable. This was me giving myself that permission. And the timing during your sister's wedding weekend? That was the weekend I had available, I said honestly. And symbolically it felt right. She was having her perfect day with everyone's attention. I was creating my own perfect day, without needing anyone's permission. The article came out 3 weeks later. A stunning layout, several of Isabel's photos, and a thoughtful interview. The response was immediate, overwhelming. My Instagram followers jumped from 2,000 to over 100,000 in 1 week. But the real impact was in my inbox. Letters from women sharing their own stories of feeling overlooked, dismissed. Many had been inspired to create their own solo celebrations. I read every message, often with tears, realizing my personal act of defiance had become something much larger. A week after the magazine came out, Vivian showed up at my apartment. Unannounced. I almost didn't let her in. Curiosity won. She looked different. Smaller. Less sure of herself. The confidence that had always defined her seemed shaken. Can we talk? She asked. I let her in. An awkward silence. I read the magazine article, she finally said. The things you said about feeling excluded, about not being celebrated. What about them? I never thought about it like that. From my perspective, I was just living my life, being successful, getting what I worked for. I didn't realize. She trailed off. Didn't realize what? I waited. That you felt so invisible that we made you feel that way? I'm not apologizing for my wedding, Vivian continued, some defensiveness returning. Or for my life. But I am sorry that you felt excluded for so long that you had to go to Paris alone to feel celebrated. It wasn't a perfect apology. It was wrapped in defensiveness. But it was something. Thank you, I said simply. Are we ever going to be okay? She asked. As sisters. I thought about that. I don't know. Maybe. But it would require you actually seeing me as an equal. Not as someone who exists in your shadow. She nodded slowly. The thing is, your Paris photos proved you were never in my shadow. You just made it look that way by staying quiet. She left shortly after. I sat there thinking about her words. She wasn't entirely wrong. I had made myself smaller for years. But I wasn't that person anymore. The opportunities kept coming. A contract with a luxury travel brand. A boutique hotel chain wanted an ongoing partnership. Photography workshops wanted me to teach. My financial situation transformed overnight. For the first time, I wasn't worried about rent or groceries versus camera equipment. The irony wasn't lost on me. My family's exclusion had inadvertently launched my career in a way years of hard work hadn't. But the most satisfying development came from an unexpected source. The photographer hired for Vivian's wedding, Catherine, reached out directly. I was contracted to photograph your sister's wedding and provide images to Bridal Dreams magazine for their coverage, she wrote. However, after your photo shoot went viral, the magazine decided to cancel the planned feature of Vivian's wedding. They said the narrative had shifted to solo celebrations, and a traditional seven-figure wedding no longer fit their editorial direction. I thought you should know, as it seems your family has been blaming you for the lack of coverage. The truth is, the magazine made a business decision based on what their readers were responding to. Your photo shoot simply resonated more than a conventional luxury wedding. I read that message 3 times. Vivian hadn't just lost social media engagement. She had lost the magazine feature she'd been counting on, the one my parents had probably used to justify the enormous expense. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I felt something more complex. Not quite guilt, but an awareness of the collateral damage. I hadn't meant to cost her that feature. I'd simply posted a photo I was proud of. But intentions don't always change outcomes. That evening, my mother called again. Her tone was different. Not angry, almost pleading. Juliette, Vivian is not doing well. This whole situation has really affected her. I'm sorry to hear that, I said, and I meant it. Despite everything, I didn't actually want my sister to suffer. The wedding was supposed to be her moment. She planned everything perfectly, spent so much money. And now people don't even remember it because of your Paris photos. Mom, I didn't plan for my photos to go viral. I just posted something I was proud of. But you had to know, she insisted. You're a photographer. You understand social media. You had to know posting those images during her wedding would take attention away from her. I posted them 2 days after the wedding, I reminded her. And even if I had posted them the same day, I'm allowed to share my own life on my own accounts. Vivian doesn't have ownership over an entire weekend. But as her sister, I should have been invited to the wedding. I interrupted. We can't have it both ways. Either I'm enough of a sister to be expected to protect her interests, or I'm not enough of a sister to be included in major family events. You don't get to pick and choose based on what's convenient. Silence. Then quietly. When did you become so harsh? I'm not harsh, I said. I'm just done being invisible. After we hung up, I poured myself a glass of wine. My life had changed dramatically in weeks. But my relationship with my family was irrevocably altered. No going back. That version of Juliette was gone. The next morning, an email. From a literary agent. She had seen the Bridal Dreams article. She thought my story would make a compelling book. Not just about the photo shoot, but about the broader experience of being overlooked and finding the courage to celebrate yourself. There's a hunger for these stories, she wrote. Women reclaiming their narratives, refusing to stay small. A book? I never considered it. But as I thought about it, I realized how many stories I had. Years of dismissal. The slow realization that I needed to create my own validation. The decision to go to Paris. The aftermath. I agreed to a call. By the end of the week, we were discussing a book proposal. The advance she mentioned? More money than I'd earned in 2 years of photography. 2 months after my Paris trip, I was invited to speak at a women's empowerment conference. Creating your own narrative when others try to write you out. I was terrified, but Kara talked me into it. This is what you've been working toward your whole life, she said. Not the fame or money, but the validation that your voice matters. Don't waste this opportunity. I walked onto that stage, looked out at the sea of faces, and told my story. The invisible daughter. The wedding exclusion. Paris. The viral response. The complicated aftermath. When I finished, the applause was thunderous. Women came up to me afterward, sharing their own stories. "You made me feel less alone," one woman said. "I thought I was the only one whose family treated them like this." That night I reflected. 3 months ago I was the excluded sister, hurt and invisible. Now I was someone whose story resonated with thousands, but I still felt the ache of family disconnection. Success didn't erase that pain. It just made it more complicated. The book deal was finalized. Title: Uninvited. Celebrating yourself when others count you out. The cover: one of Isabel's photos. The launch party? Held at an art gallery in Charleston. Over 200 people. Friends, colleagues, followers who had become friends. My family wasn't there. I had sent invitations out of courtesy, not expectation. They didn't respond. The book was an immediate success. Hit bestseller lists. Reviews praised its honesty. Women shared it in book clubs, posted quotes, wrote to me about how it had helped them process their own family trauma. But success came with complications. My parents hired a lawyer, threatening to sue for invasion of privacy. A cease and desist. My publisher's legal team shut it down. But it showed how far apart we'd grown. They were more concerned with their reputation than understanding my pain. Vivian took a different approach. She wrote an op-ed about being portrayed unfairly. Never mentioned me by name, but the subtext was clear. She positioned herself as a victim of my success. The response to her op-ed was swift and unsympathetic. People pointed out her lack of accountability. The older sister was excluded from a major family event and still found a way to celebrate life. The younger sister had a $750,000 wedding and is mad that someone else got attention. Tell me who the real problem is. Vivian's Instagram went quiet. My parents didn't reach out. The silence felt like the final severing. In December, 8 months after Paris, I signed the lease on a new apartment. A beautiful 2-bedroom in a historic Charleston neighborhood. High ceilings, large windows, perfect for a home studio. I could afford it comfortably now. Cara helped me move in, and we celebrated with champagne on my new balcony. "You did it," she said, raising her glass. "You actually built a whole new life." "We did it," I corrected. "You were there for every step." "So what's next?" "More travel content, the book, all of that," I said. "But also, I want to help other people tell their stories. Women who feel invisible, who need permission to celebrate themselves. I'm thinking about starting workshops, creating a platform for those voices." Cara smiled. "That's perfect. You found your purpose." Maybe I had. Not just in the success or recognition, but in using my experience to help others feel less alone. The book was published the following June. Almost exactly 1 year after my Paris trip. 1 year. And then I was traveling frequently for book tours, speaking engagements, universities, women's conferences, corporate events. Each time I told my story, I saw recognition in the audience's faces. So many people understood what it felt like to be overlooked. In August, an unexpected email from a family therapist specializing in sibling dynamics and parental favoritism. "I've used your story in several sessions with clients," she wrote. "It's helped them understand that choosing yourself isn't selfish. It's survival." She was writing a book about family scapegoating and wanted to interview me. The interview was thoughtful, exploring why these patterns develop. "You broke the pattern," she told me. "Most scapegoated children spend their lives trying to earn approval that will never come. You chose a different path. You validated yourself instead of waiting for them to do it." That conversation helped me understand my story in a larger context. I wasn't just the excluded sister. I was someone who had recognized a toxic pattern and made the hard choice to step away. In September, I was invited to speak at a major conference in New York. Over 1,000 people. When I walked onto that stage, I thought about the scared, invisible girl I had been just 16 months earlier. The one who believed she wasn't worth celebrating unless someone else decided she was. I told my story. I showed the Paris photos. And then I said something I had been thinking about for months. Going to Paris wasn't revenge. It was revolution. personal revolution. The quiet kind that happens when you stop asking for permission to exist fully and start granting it to yourself. My family wanted me to be invisible, and for years I complied. But in Paris, I made myself visible. And I discovered that when you shine your own light, you don't need anyone else's approval to be luminous. The applause was deafening. After the conference, walking through Central Park, I reflected on everything. My career was thriving. Financial security, professional recognition, a platform to help others. But I had also lost my family. Or perhaps I had simply acknowledged a loss that had always existed. That evening, a text from an unknown number. Vivian, I saw your New York speech online. You were right about some things. I've been thinking a lot this past year. I'm in therapy now, working through my own issues. I'm not ready to talk yet, but I wanted you to know I'm trying to understand. It wasn't an apology, not a reconciliation, but it was acknowledgement. Maybe that was enough for now. I replied simply, I'm glad you're taking care of yourself. When you're ready to talk, I'm here. Whether she would ever take me up on that offer, I didn't know. But I meant it. I had built a life that didn't require her approval or presence. But there was still a part of me that hoped for healing. Not a return to the old dynamics, but something new and healthier. Months after New York, the consequences for my family became clear. My parents' social circle in Charleston had read my book. Many distanced themselves, uncomfortable. Their reputations suffered. They retired early, moved to a smaller town. Vivian's career stalled. The marketing firm quietly let her go. Gregory filed for divorce, unable to handle the social media fallout, and what he called her obsession with appearances over substance. She moved back in with our parents for a while. A humbling experience for someone who had spent her life being celebrated as the successful one. As for me, I sit on my apartment balcony 2 years after that Paris sunrise. My second book releases next month. A guide to solo celebration and self-validation. I've launched an online community for women navigating family exclusion. Cara and I are planning another trip to Paris, this time just for pleasure. The journey from invisible daughter to woman with her own voice has been painful, messy, and more complicated than any revenge fantasy could capture. But sitting here, coffee in hand, watching the morning light paint the city gold, I realized something important. I hadn't just escaped being overlooked. I had learned to see myself clearly, to celebrate myself genuinely, to shine without needing anyone's permission or approval. And in teaching others to do the same, I found something more valuable than family acceptance. I found purpose, community, and most importantly, I found myself. Sometimes the best revenge isn't punishment at all. Sometimes it's simply refusing to stay small. Building a life so bright that those who tried to dim you can't help but notice, and realize too late what they lost when they chose not to see you in the first place. So tell me, what would you have done in my shoes? Have you ever felt overlooked or had to fight to define your own worth? I really want to hear your stories in the comments below. Let's talk about it.